Hello everybody, this is John. Welcome to the Mershman Seeds Ag Weather Outlook for August 19th, 2017. Well, it's certainly been an interesting summer. I guess weather's always interesting, at least that's how I look at it, but there really haven't been many just totally quiet weeks. We've had some interesting weather patterns all summer, it seems like. This past week, lots of Nebraska rain. If you're in Nebraska, it's been a very wet week, so we went from very dry to very wet in a short period of time. Eastern Corn Belt started off wet, but now it's getting quite dry, and there's actually a need for some more rain. Iowa, right in the middle. That's really been the spot here that's missed out on a lot of the action. But it's not a typical summer, or is it? That's what makes up our weather, are this variability. Now, the last week, take a look at this right here in Nebraska. Look how widespread the rain is. Now, I look at not just the intensity of the rain, which is the red, and I even see some purple in there, perhaps, but I also look at how widespread it is. And that 2 inches or more, the yellow, that covers a good part, a majority of the state of Nebraska over the last 7 days. Now, if you're in that area in red, you're probably dealing with an excess of rain, pooling of water, especially there right smack in the middle part of the state. I can see a little bit of purple, and that's indicating even 8 inches or more of rain. So I'm sure went from very dry conditions to now some ponding of water and some excess water conditions. That also got into parts of the Dakotas. And we've really seen a reversal of conditions in there, not completely, but certainly going in the right direction. Still drought in some of these areas, especially North Dakota, but the trend is additional rainfall. Now, if we go a little bit further east, Iowa did get some rain over the western and northern part of the state, even some soaking rain. That 2-inch rain worked its way into parts of the central part of the state, 1 to 2 inches of rain, so that was very much needed. You might remember the northeast part of Iowa is the area that's been wet. Everywhere else is very dry. So southern Iowa, northern Missouri, and a good part of Illinois missed out on most of the significant precipitation. Now, temperatures last week, we remained in this cool pattern, unusual cool pattern. I'm going to be talking about how this is going to be continuing for the next 10 days over many areas. So it's very interesting to see how this pattern is lasting as we get into the latter part of the summer now. So soil moisture really tells the story. Here we are, the hottest time of the year when we're most vulnerable towards drought. And look at now, not just the east, but now parts of the western Corn Belt. I'm seeing this green here that's saying soils are actually on the wet side. Now, if it's light green, that's usually pretty good. That means there's adequate soil moisture for these hot weeks that we're going to have. If you get into the darker shades of green and blue, parts of Wisconsin and real isolated parts of the plains, that's where we're getting too wet. But I think the story to focus on here is southern Iowa and Illinois, parts of northern Missouri, even some small parts now of Michigan and Indiana. Those are areas where we need that additional rainfall, especially southern Iowa and northern Missouri and parts of Illinois. Now, over the last week, you can see parts of Iowa did improve. This is a soil moisture improvement. Blue is an improving soil moisture. The eastern Corn Belt, all the way from Illinois over to Ohio, nothing of significance. It's really dried out even further over the last week. But the western Corn Belt, look at the blue. That's saying it's gotten wetter. So those are areas that have really improved as far as recharging our soil moisture. Look at North Dakota, look at Nebraska, even look at parts of Minnesota and smaller parts of Iowa. Now, there are a couple tropical systems. I always keep an eye on those for you because if they get into the Gulf and move north, that can really change the rainfall situation. Right now, I do not see either one of these systems moving into that area. We're going to have to watch the East Florida coast and parts of the eastern U.S. Right now, it looks like it might curve around, but let's just keep an eye on this one system, this one right here, as over the next 5 days it moves in the general vicinity of the Caribbean and into parts off the east coast of the U.S. But that's way out there, so low confidence at this time. So the jet stream this week, look at that dip in the jet stream again, that area in blue. That's going to bring a cool front down, another reinforcing cool front. We don't see it so much in the first 5 days here. It's usually the reinforcing cool fronts coming later in the week, and that'll be ushering in the cooler air. So for the most part, near normal temperatures over most of the region over the first 5 days. But then as that front moves down, look at this here. As that front nears in the warm, moist air earlier this week, especially Sunday and Monday, we have that chance for some heavier rain over particularly Iowa and even northern Missouri. Most of this area, not necessarily even the central part of the state. It did get quite a bit of rain last week, but this is an area that's been very, very dry. So ideally this would be better if it's a little bit to the south, a little bit to the east, but parts of this area, especially southern Iowa, can really use that rain, and almost all of that rain will be soaking in if it does occur in that. So a little bit complicated because some areas are going to have back-to-back weeks of heavy rain, and that could pose some problems. But for the most part, generally speaking, this will be a needed rain. Now, 5 inches of rain is going to cause some problems with some ponding of water and pooling of water, but I do think most of this area is dry enough that will soak in over a fairly short period of time. Now, as we get into the late part of August, look at this pattern here of temperatures. We have in the 6 to 10 day range a much cooler air mass pushing in as we go through this period. So we're going to start off on the warm side, on the hot side, for the first, depending where you're at, up to 5 days or so. And then this cool front will be pushing through, ushering in a period of cooler air that's going to tamp down 90-degree temperatures. And you can see these here, 90-degree temperatures. Often this time of year, it's over the entire Midwest, and we're not having any 90-degree weather over anywhere north of Nebraska, Missouri, and central Illinois. No, over the next 10 days. Now, and even these readings here, that'll be cooling down once we get that cool air pushing in. Now, if we get into the end of August into early September, we still have not real strong patterns. You can see the shadings here aren't that strong, but just enough to still keep temperatures fairly close to normal. So here we are into September now, and I still do not see any signs of baking hot temperatures pretty much anywhere over the Corn Belt. So I think that's pretty unusual for this time of year that we're still talking about this cool weather. Usually if you get a cool spell, it will last for a couple days or maybe a week, but we've been talking about this for a while, and really it looks like by the time we sort of work our way out of this, we're going to be getting into the fall months. So precipitation, I think I talked about week 1. Let's talk about week 2. Here we go. You can see areas in green. It looks like areas that started off the summer quite dry could continue in a fairly wet pattern as we get into week 2. Areas that started off pretty wet in spring, such as the eastern Corn Belt, generally look like they're going to get lower amounts of precipitation, although at least this model doesn't have yellow anywhere in the Corn Belt for the most part, saying that there could be a chance of rain just about anywhere in week 2. So here's your change in soil moisture, and overall, I think the spot to watch this week is the needed Iowa rain. Let's see where that falls. Hopefully it's going to fall over spots that really need some additional rain. And it looks like this relatively weird summer temperature pattern will continue with another push of cooler and very pleasant summer air pushing in. Highs mainly in the 80s over many areas as we get into the latter part of this week into next week. Have a great week, and we'll be talking to you again next weekend.